Hi, my name is Chris Parkhurst. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I'm also the host of the Documentary Life podcast, a show that spans 140 episodes, has been downloaded in over 135 countries, and I've been producing for about 5 years. I decided to put each and every episode up here onto YouTube to sort of expand the audience, and as we say in the show, maybe inspire and inform some more doc filmmakers, hopefully like yourself. In the episodes, you may find some older, maybe outdated URLs, in particular any of the documentary filmmaking courses that we do offer online. If you have any questions about the URLs, simply look in the show notes on this page, here on this YouTube page, and that'll be able to take you where you need to go to. Other than that, I hope you enjoy the show, and it's great to have another listener to the Documentary Life. Have a great day. Microphone check, 1, 2. CC, hello and welcome. CC, hello and welcome.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. There we go, rolling.
It's almost like you go to a festival and suddenly 5 years or 3 years you worked on your doc and almost lost your mind trying to get it done. And it's almost like all that disappears when you show your film to an audience. It's kind of like, there is just this feeling, I can't describe it. It's almost like the cure, it just makes you feel, that it's worth something. You don't even think about the sales or all that. It's just like you actually, someone like a festival said, come show your film, we like it. And that is, I think for filmmakers is everything.
Hello and welcome to The Documentary Life, a show that sets out to inspire and inform you on how to best live and lead your own documentary life. I am your host, Chris G. Parkhurst, and this is episode number 80. And it is brought to you by Barong Films, proud creators of documentary film, the Documentary Life podcast, and the Documentary Academy, our industry-changing A to Z documentary filmmaking program that will transform you into the documentary filmmaker that you've always wanted to be. Find out more at thedocumentarylife.com/academy. It was about a year ago that we ran a very special two-parter on the film festival for the documentary filmmaker. The idea was to kind of pull back the curtains of a documentary film festival, in this case the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival, and see how they operated and how the doc filmmaker could best leverage the power of a film festival to propel their films and careers forward. Lyndon Stone, the festival director of MDFF, he guided us through this part of our discussion in the 2 episodes. While 2 doc filmmakers who had films being shown at the festival, they gave us their insight and inspiration from the perspective of the doc filmmaker. The show was immensely popular. In fact, at the time, we had a record number of downloads from it. We received a lot of positive response from our listeners, from you guys, and it opened up a ton of discussion on the Documentary Life Community Facebook group. And while we were overjoyed that the shows were resonating with you doc lifers, I do have to say, we weren't all that surprised by the positive response to the content. We doc filmmakers, we've always known the power and potential of getting our films into these festivals, but we certainly haven't known the particulars of this, or at the very least, how to get our films into certain festivals. So we felt that our special would offer some pretty unique first-hand and kind of under-the-hood accounts of what goes into a film festival, why they're important to the doc filmmaker, and what we can be doing that will give us the best chance of being accepted into these festivals. And so we've decided to do it again this year. MDFF is only 2 weeks away, and it seemed like a great time to revisit this kind of open discussion between the gatekeeper of a doc film festival and those who had been fortunate enough to be granted access to the castle, if you will. And so when we come back from a quick break, we'll get right into part 1 of this year's 2-part special on the Documentary Film Festival by once again reconnecting with our good friend Lyndon Stone, the festival director of MDFF. And then we'll meet with the first of 2 doc filmmakers that we'll be talking with for our special. His name is Tony Ziera. His doc is called Filmworker. And you are really going to love what Tony has to say. Unexpectedly, my conversation with Tony turned into one of the most real and candid discussions on living the doc life that we've yet had on the program. All of this is coming up next on The Documentary Life. I'm excited to welcome back to the program, actually the next two programs, Lyndon Stone, the festival director of Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. If either one of those ring a bell, that would be because of almost exactly a year ago today, we released a two-part special on documentary film festivals, in particular highlighting MDFF, Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. And we spoke with Lyndon in both episodes, as well as two filmmakers, two doc filmmakers who will be in the festival. And we are doing the same this year. Lyndon, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you on. I'm excited to investigate film festivals again and talk with you about what's happening at MDFF.
Yeah, great. It's nice to chat, Chris, and congratulations on success of your podcast. Hearing like 80,000 downloads, and yeah, it looks like you're doing very, very well. So congratulations.
We're excited by that. Absolutely. We know that we have quality content, and we have some great guests on the show.
Yeah.
And for us, it's just about getting the word out there, because we do believe that there is a lot of value for documentary filmmakers out there with this show. Lyndon,
right.
Last year's special was such a success that we decided to do something similar this year, as you know, and have another two-parter. Right. So, let's get right into it, really. Now, this is the third or fourth year for you guys? What year are we into with the MDFF?
Yeah, it's the third year. So still kind of like a startup kind of film festival.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's doing extremely well. Like, I don't know if you looked at the program, but some amazing documentaries. So it's every year just gets better and better.
Oh, yeah.
And the curation gets, just so sharp, and we get access to some of the best docs from some of the best film festivals. We're very, very lucky. Yeah.
So Lyndon, tell us for any first-time listeners that are out there that maybe didn't hear last year's two-part special, tell us what MDFF, what your guys' mission is all about, briefly how you came to be, and who this festival exactly is for.
Okay, it's a very good question, Chris. I guess the aim is to support independent documentary filmmaking, particularly in Australia, Melbourne, and also the world. So it's basically kind of barracking for the indie filmmaker to be able to showcase a film in a competitive setting. Yeah, so I mean, since we started 3 years ago, it's just been exponential growth in terms of audience numbers and just experimenting with different things. Like we're the first down under to do web series. We did documentary photography as a competitive a category. So playing around with the genre of documentary, being playful, being mindful of the genre, but also making it more accessible to people. It does skew a little bit younger than other film festivals. So it's trying to kind of broaden the audience of documentary, making documentaries fun. And at the base of that, and the base of a lot of Melbourne film festivals, is short documentary. And I guess over the last 3 years, we've seen this exponential growth of short documentary, short form documentary, get to the point of the story. And, it's great to see it, put back in IDFA now as a category. Like short documentaries now being put into, IDFA as a competitive category, which is great to see.
Yeah.
And it's really driven a lot by things like Vice, Guardian, Vox, and those kind of things. So we've kind of seen this exponential growth. It wasn't like that 3 years ago, but it's certainly, we've seen this amazing growth in short documentary. And it's great to see kind of documentary become cool. It's less bookish and nerdish, and you're seeing things like IDFA putting like DJs on, and Copenhagen Docs putting DJs on, and this kind of it's kind of this renaissance of documentary as a genre. So it's great to see it kind of becoming, not so much mainstream, but more appreciated for being, something that is innovative and cool, and not say pretentious, but something more accessible that, young people can get into, and people can enjoy, a good documentary on its merits. So it's just trying to make it more accessible to an audience. Yeah.
And amen for that. And speaking of audience, I remember that we discussed a little bit last year. We talked about, for you, part of the importance, of course, filmmaker was, one of the priorities, the doc filmmaker, but also something that was important for you was that you felt like festivals were Well, theater goers, as statistics will tell you, are dropping, and they've been dropping for a few
Yeah.
years now. People are watching their films in many other ways. They're watching it from their laptops. They're watching it from the comforts of their
Yeah.
home. And for you, you wanted to be able to create an experience to get people to come out to the theater again. Do you feel like you're
That's
having
right.
any
Yeah.
success with that?
Oh, yes. Yes, very much so. And like you say, a lot of people are like, Netflix is, killing off the film festival circuit, or I'm of the opinion that it probably makes it more segmented. It just makes things a little bit more interesting. Like, I mean, if anything was going to kill the film festival circuit, it would have been Vimeo, YouTube, people just uploading stuff for free. But it hasn't come to pass, has
That's
it,
right.
really? And so it just makes things, I guess, more segmented. You have to be a bit more savvier. But I think if you're looking at documentary as a genre, there's always kind of niches or fan bases that you can call upon. I mean, the George Michael documentary is almost sold out. There's a lot of George Michael fans in Melbourne, which is great to see. The Stanley Kubrick documentary, it's selling very well as well. And so, we've got that exclusive kind of premiere in Melbourne. So
That's
I
right.
guess it comes back to exclusive premieres like Melbourne, Australia. So if you've got that kind of cachet, or if you've got that behind you,
Right.
then all your ducks are in a row. Kind of everything kind of falls into place. So as long as you've got these kind of tentpole kind of documentaries, it all kind of, as a kind of program, kind of all kind of plays off each other and all kind of comes together in a way. So it is interesting. It is challenging. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's insurmountable. So you have to rise to the occasion.
Lyndon, I'm curious, what has changed for you in terms of your approach with the festival? Now that you're in your third year, what's changed since, say, even before your first screenings, the first year that you were putting this together? What has changed, if anything, about your approach and the film festival?
Well, it's probably, I mean, I've been doing work like in the film industry for coming about 9 years and stuff like that. In terms of film festivals and hearing what filmmakers want from a film festival, I think it's important. I think the particularly, obviously there's the international film festivals, but there's these emerging film festivals like Melbourne Documentary, which are competitive in nature. And I think probably, where we would like to get to at a point in further editions is probably getting to a point where, where we look to do a screening fee, like pay the filmmaker for their work or bring them out to Melbourne. So I think that's something that a lot of film festivals don't do. I think it's probably something that we should move towards in the future, maybe making the festival a little bit shorter, but the filmmakers get like a screening fee for their work, or they come out to Melbourne. So just listening to filmmakers and a lot of film festivals don't do that, but I think that's the right thing to do. And I think that's the thing about this festival. It always does the right thing. When the Sony hack came out about the woman in film, we're one of the first film festivals to make sure that's a priority. It's the right thing to do. It wasn't like fashionable to do at the time, but it was just the right thing to do. And I think that is the right thing to do with competitive film festivals, to get to a point where, you do something like, if you are using a screen in the future, maybe looking at a screening fee or those kind of things moving forward. So that's something I'd like to kind of move towards with a film festival, maybe make it a little bit shorter, but people either get flown out or they get like a screening fee for their time. And as I say, many festivals don't do that.
No.
A lot of filmmakers have to ask for that kind of stuff. And I'm just getting this kind of feedback going, this is what we can do to improve, and make it better and better and better. Yeah. So that's some ideas I've got, moving forward in terms of reforming competitive film festivals. I think that would be the right thing to do by the filmmaker moving forward. Yeah.
It's interesting that you would talk about that and talk about your approach. And I feel like I picked up on that for sure. As a documentary filmmaker myself, I felt like after talking with you and putting the episodes together last year that MDFF is certainly a festival that I would like to be a part of. I mean, certainly as a filmmaker and certainly on the show, having you back here again, because I believe in what you guys are doing at MDFF, but more than that, I spoke with Tony Ziera, filmmaker Tony Ziera, who's also going to be a part of this special, and his Film Worker is going to be playing MDFF. And I have to say, Lyndon, he spoke quite glowingly about you and about what MDFF is doing. And part of what he was saying when he described why he was so happy to be a part of MDFF was that he felt like, unlike a number of his other film festival experiences, MDFF was very hands-on, and they were very compassionate and empathetic towards the doc filmmaker. And he really appreciated the amount of contact that was going back and forth between you guys. And I know that he's certainly somebody who's happy to be a part of MDFF.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He's like, as I say, it's a big title. It's a runaway hit in North America. And to be able to show it in Melbourne is a big honor. And he's just such a nice guy about it. He was just happy to let us show his work, and no talk of screening fees or being flown out. He just said, look, if you like it, it's yours, kind of wanted to help us out. And I was really taken by that. He also did a documentary, Your Big Break, or Your First Big Break.
Of course.
Like that. So, I think for him, he's had breaks in the past, and I think he's kind of paying it forward in a way. So, that's a nice thing for him to do, and obviously very emotionally intelligent guy. His producing partner Elizabeth Yoff's interesting as well. She did The Chocolate War and has done work with David Lynch, and this work on Leon Vitali, the film work and stuff like that. So they've got an interesting body of work, and they seem like they're true blue documentary filmmakers. So. And they understand and compassionate about the film festivals and what they're doing. Yeah.
At this point, Lyndon, how much are you reaching out to filmmakers versus filmmakers are reaching out to you to apply for MDFF, this being your third year?
Well, there's a lot of people that talk to us, like they approach us. The majority of people approach us, but there are ones like, sometimes like Dawn, for example, who did Risking Light. We talked to her back at crowdfunding stage, so having a chat to, and then like we've been, friends with like Tony on Twitter for a year and a bit. So we got to chat to them, over time, just having that kind of dialogue. But to be honest, the majority of people approach us. They'll be like, hey, here's this documentary from South by Southwest. I'd love to screen it. It's usually always at the last minute too. They said, love to come to your film festival. I was like, we've pretty much already picked everything, so it's kind of, it's hard, but you do get a lot of people approaching you about screening, and so that's the majority of where people come. But with the competitive film festivals now, you can actually invite people. Like in the film submission, you can actually send emails out to people to invite them to apply. Film Freeway, you can invite people to apply. You can give them a discount. So it's kind of having this two-way kind of relationship. But to be fair, a lot of filmmakers actually contact us. Right. Majority of where our contact comes from. Yeah.
Now, a big part of what we talk about here, because we're speaking directly to doc filmmakers, and they want to understand how the film festival process works, so whether it's selection, how film festivals are built or put together, or who someone like yourself is, a director. And so as part of that discussion, I'm curious, so perhaps we can add to that discussion from maybe last year. And so I guess I would ask you, has there been anything new that you could think of, and this is either from the festival director's perspective or perhaps from the doc filmmaker's perspective, is there anything new maybe in the past year that has come up in regards to film festivals that you feel like doc filmmakers might want to know about?
Well, what about you, Chris? I mean, you're a filmmaker. What do you find with film festivals that you want more information about, or you don't quite understand? What do you feel from your perspective?
Well, that's an interesting question, because to be honest, I feel like having conversations with you, even a year ago, and certainly having email exchanges since that time, and getting feedback from other listeners of the program, I feel like you've answered, well, it's less about that you've answered all of my questions and more like I felt like something that was really beautiful that came out of last year's special was by combining this episode where I talked with filmmakers who were at your particular film festival, and then I talked to you, the festival director behind that festival. I really felt like we were giving a more rounded and a deeper sort of, or an under the hood, if you will, understanding, of how a festival works and how a doc filmmakers like ourselves, how that whole world works. And I felt like there was a lot of light that was shed during that time. And so I guess I'm curious, if in now this being your third year as the festival director, a year has gone by since the last time we spoke for this. If there's anything that's come up that you could think of that might doc filmmakers might want to know in terms of whether it's submitting their films to festivals, whether it's the types of festivals they should be submitting to, or anything about strategies, anything that you think that might help us that we might not be aware of, in particular because maybe we are not a part of a festival such as yourself.
Well, that's the thing. I guess in a lot of filmmakers coming through, quite a lot of like first-time filmmakers, or they haven't got like a sales agent or a distributor in the Australian context. So for me, it's good to be able to educate people like Tony about, hey, these are the big major players in terms of distribution. When we do the screening, we don't just do the screening. We do help filmmakers out in terms of, leads for distribution, or, different festivals they can submit to, open air cinema. We do make suggestions to them about festival strategy in Australia because we know Australia and New Zealand very well. And they don't. So they're the asymmetry of information. So we generally try to help the filmmaker on their side to help them. Like for Dawn, for example, I'd love to see her picked up by SBS or NITV about Aboriginal issues. I'd love to see it play in Tasmania, close to Deborah Hocking's friends and family. There's a few festivals down in Tasmania. So I've been talking to, Dawn about that. But it is, it is this kind of, they come to you for screening. And sometimes, you can get that extra added value by offering help with, and we work with a lot of distributors, Umbrella, we work with Antidote Films, some of the major players and Bounty Entertainment, they're looking for documentary as well. But it's to help people to get their films out there. And obviously, particularly for first-time filmmakers, a non-exclusive contract's probably the way to go, like probably having it on Vimeo, maybe Amazon Prime, other kind of ways to get their film out, particularly the first when it's just starting out, and then probably after that, probably going to an exclusive kind of arrangement with the major players and stuff like that. But I guess it's kind of just giving them the information about which festivals in Australia are good. There's not too many documentary film festivals down under these days. That's so it's about, just kind of educating them and then distributors and stuff. But it's just kind of getting back to those kind of qualities of respect and helping the filmmaker out. And, it's not just a screening. We just really want them to do well, and really want them to go on to play at other festivals. A lot of people have been inquiring about the George Michael documentary in Australia, so that's good to see. So the people have been telling me, we're so glad it was in your set list, and all these films festivals approached us. So, a lot of people do look at what we choose. Like a lot of curators, they like our style. Even the broadcasters, SBS and ABC, have actually contacted some of the short filmmakers. So people go, well, what's the point of doing the film? It's really getting it out there and putting yourself out there and connecting with, a greater audience out there. So, and it actually does that. So, and then a great example of that is a guy called Mark. He's an Australian filmmaker. Some Indian producers saw that he'd done some sports documentaries and actually flew him out to India to film, a documentary about American gridiron in India. So it was just because he was on our website. And then also SBS and ABC had taken him out as well. We also managed to do a screening in India as well, on top of what we normally do. No money changes hands. It's just more trying to get the filmmaker out there. Yeah. But he went to that, and it was at the Mumbai International Film Festival.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is actually a pretty good festival for short film makers. So,
right.
Yeah, so that's really exciting.
So, as you know, similar to last year, we have two filmmakers who are excited to be a part of your festival. Tony Ziera of Filmworker and Don Mickelson of Risking Light. Let's talk about Tony first, and maybe I just recently spoke with him, and his documentary film Filmworker is about Leon Vitali of Stanley Kubrick fame. Yeah. Tell us about what was it for you that was interesting or drew you to Tony and his work, and in particular, of course, Filmworker. How did Tony and his film end up at MDFF?
That's the thing. Like we're big Kubrick fans at the festival, so we managed to get a screener of it. I ran it past my assistant festival director, who is James. He's done an amazing amount of work. He's a great guy. he had a look at it and he was just blown away by it, by the scope and the way it's put together. Have you seen a screener of it yet?
Oh, yes, of course.
It's so good. So they've done an amazing job on telling the story. So I guess it came to that interest, but there are actually a few kind of documentaries on a similar kind of subject, but this one was of a very high quality, very well put together.
It is.
It's well constructed documentary, and so that got all the the green lights, and we're very lucky to get it, and I'm very thankful for Tony to allow us to show it. And I really hope that from there some kind of like film societies or art house cinemas or other festivals in Australia pick it up, because it's a gem. It's a really great documentary.
What for you in that film, in Filmworker, stood out for you that you felt like we have to have this at MDFF? And it could be the content. You mentioned being big Kubrick fans.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's more than that. So I'm curious if you could kind of get down in the weeds a little bit and tell us what it was exactly that made you say, this has got to be a part of our programming.
Well, it's a great acquisition. I guess it's kind of thinking of the audience. Who is the audience? Who's going to see that? And obviously, there's the Kubrick fans. But I think more often than not, the theme is a lot of people's theme. It's a lot of people in the film industry are film workers. They're the unsung heroes of productions.
That's right.
Who, it's their story. Leon Vittori's story is their story. And the same with Dawn's, Risking Light. A lot of people have gone through a lot of stuff in life, and I think they can overlay their own experience on these kind of films, whether it's a film worker as a kind of a person who works in the film industry, or with Risking Light. Maybe there's some things in their own life that they can overlay with the documentary to help maybe resolve, or to get some further questions, or to get some further clarity on their own kind of aspects of life. So it's how the audience connect with the film. And both are great acquisitions because of that aspect, because they relate to an audience, and then audience can in some way overlay their own life into the film, because it does have that correlation. Because you're like a film worker, or you've had something that's maybe happened in your life, and compassion can be a way to look at resolving that, or to helping get to that point of resolution. So those are why they're two good acquisitions.
Over the last few years, as we've met and connected with more and more doc lifers, we've been asked what the most comprehensive doc filmmaking course out there is. The truth is, we didn't believe there was one. There are plenty of videos and some courses that walk you through some technical aspects of filmmaking, and workshops that cover some of the business aspects, but there was nothing that specifically took the doc filmmaker through the whole actual doc filmmaking journey, both creative and business, from A to Z. That is, until we created one. The Documentary Academy is the only all-in-one online documentary film production course that actually starts from the beginning of your film's journey, from story conception through pre-production and actual production to post-production, and through to the promotions, marketing, and distribution of your film. The Academy will help you make your most successful documentary film by guiding you on the journey from conception to launch. But don't just take our word for it. Have a look for yourself by going to thedocumentarylife.com/academy and discover everything that the Academy has to offer, including a video that takes you inside the Academy for a look around. The Documentary Academy has already greatly helped others realize their power and potential as doc filmmakers. Why not be the next person who brings an awesome documentary film to life? Head on over to thedocumentarylife.com/academy today, and we'll see you there. Tony, I'm excited to have you on the program. I just recently watched Filmworker, which is the current film that you're in the midst of doing the film festival circuit with this particular film. So excited to talk about Filmworker, as well as your experience really with film festivals in general as a doc filmmaker.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about it too.
Tony, you have an interesting story. Really, you have an interesting connection with Hollywood and how doc filmmaking came to be, and certainly connections with maybe some names that people know in Hollywood, if you will.
Well, I guess it's maybe a typical story, but I was in LA, and that was the place that I thought would be the ideal for making docs. And then I discovered that wasn't the case, because it's just like anywhere else. You still have to get the budget. You still have to find the right story, and be able to survive getting it all done. And I think my beginning, or my first project that I would say kind of got things going a bit, and it wasn't easy. I was living with 4 actors
That's
as
right.
roommates, and I really was so frustrated that I just couldn't get my hands on any financing or an agent, etc. You know, the typical way that we all doc filmmakers think in the beginning that's the way to do it.
Yes.
And so, you know, after a long, evaluation, in a sense, I felt like, well, this was like in 1998.
Yeah, right.
Reality, even TV, didn't exist. And I remember looking at my friends and I said, well, you know, I'm going to start filming them. They're actors. They want to be actors.
Yeah.
So they could practically star in this project, you know, and let's see where it goes. And if they fail in the sense of getting it going in Hollywood, I'll just like film them, you know, packing and going home.
Totally.
And so I filmed them for years, but I was lucky in the end because 3 started working out of 4, and that's kind of unusual sometimes, or all the time in LA. And so then once, you know, when I started to film it, it was a bit like people said, like, who wants to watch actors living in one house? And again, because this was the beginning of reality.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I remember, I think it was like all we had is the real world on MTV, but
That's right.
I wanted to make more of a doc, like a feature, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
film. And so, I just jumped and I started to, you know, if I bought little cameras and got film cameras and video cameras and build my own board, and where I would mount all the cameras at the same time and mics, and try to improvise and kind of be like really super guerrilla. I mean,
Yeah.
it is, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
people always say, oh, you know, people always say like, well, oh, this film is independent, and it's like it's only $10 million, and that's a joke, because independent in docs is like, you know, you work
$10.
and then you take a couple of bucks. Exactly, and you go out and buy tape. That was at the time of tapes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You just keep going bit by bit, you know.
And the film that you're referring to is My Big Break, and it's a wonderful
Yes.
film, and you have not even mentioned some of the actors' names, because that's part of the beauty of this, of course, because a couple of them became pretty well known in short order.
Yeah.
What format did you shoot My Big Break in, and did you change the formats at all because you filmed for a while?
Yes, because well, it was like if I was able to get my hand on just let's say a Super 8 film camera, I would use that for a while.
Right.
And then I started to realize that I needed to do more coverage, and that film transfer was going to be very expensive. So now I would process the film, and then I would project it on the wall, and then I would videotape it off the wall, and then I would transfer it back to the system. It was always, you know, I think that is our motto with docs. It's like, you do whatever you can.
It's never ending.
Yeah, and then I got my hands on a high 8, and I shot on that. And then I had any camera that I could get my hands on, or if somebody would lend it to me for like a couple of days.
Yeah.
And then in the end, of course, it was about taking all these formats, and I think I ended up with about 7 formats, and then taking them all back in the system. And back then, of course, you were stuck with Avid in a sense, which was very difficult because Avids were so expensive.
Yeah.
And that was even before Final Cut
Yeah.
kind of came into the picture, and it was feasible to at least get yourself a Final Cut system and start editing.
Right.
So it was one of those things, you know, and at the end also festivals didn't project from digital, so I had to go get the money and go to 35 millimeter and show that at the festival. So it was really like a brutal
beginning to your doc career.
7 years. Yeah.
The reception of My Big Break was pretty good.
Well, you see, what happened is that originally it was carving out our name.
Yeah.
And that's the one that came out, and it went to Toronto. And when it premiered at Toronto, that's when things started to open up.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I premiered on September 10th, 2001.
Right.
And so I was supposed to sell the movie in the morning, and then the whole deal practically fell in the morning when the towers collapsed and the attacks happened. So that was another hit in the, a filmmaking hit, that I just went back to LA, broke again. And so then when I got back, I remember what I did. And again, this goes with your theme of like, when you're a doc maker, you have to, whatever it takes, you just got to do it.
And you're rolling with the punches.
Got back, exactly. You roll with the punches. Well, then I sat down and I heard from a couple of distributors that said, that now we didn't buy the film, but we could take it off your hands because, at least you'll have a movie out there. And even some suggested that I need to get the money to promote the doc and not give me money. I mean, it's really absurd.
Wow, disgusting.
And so it's tough, and it makes you practically lose your mind. And I remember I decided in the last, I kept thinking, and I said, you know what, I'm going to incorporate what happened with me.
Yes.
Making carving, and I'm going to create this other project, my big break, and I'm going to put what I shot in carving and cover also my own story in my big break, in a sense of like how this whole thing collapsed, and then I got it back together. And also my friends, once they made it, they also fell in the same trap of you think you made it, that you're home free, and they also made mistakes and they lost. Some of them ended up filing bankruptcy and stuff. So Big Break shows you before, during, and after. Yeah. What happens when you get your break and you think, oh, you're all set.
Right.
And so we did that, and I released it independently, and I released it myself actually, with my partner Elizabeth Yaffe, who's also, we're still producing together, and I think that is a huge key too, as you know, with having a partner or someone or even yourself that is willing to kind of wear different hats, in the sense of being, you got to be your own marketing person, you got to be your own camera person, sound, name it, you have to. And you just keep going, whatever events around you or wherever life takes you, you find a way to keep telling stories. So then, of course, I got back, and I think it was 1999, and it was the same time that American Beauty came out, and I remember the Eyes Wide Shut came out, and everybody was anticipating the finale of Stanley Kubrick, and of course the reviews were terrible. Yeah. And I became more obsessed with that project, and I wanted to know what was really Kubrick up to. And so I knew that Leon Vitali, who's his assistant, and he was an actor before, was one of the closest people to him creatively. So he was on my list to film with. So I shot for about 2 years, talking to different people, and Leon was the last one on my list.
No
Then
way.
I went to LA. Yeah, because he was the last, because I wanted to keep him for last. And like now I gained all this knowledge about Kubrick. I wanted to kind of now get Leon on camera to tell his side of the story and to really find the truth and etc. And so I met him in LA, and again I had the typical, more of a perception that I thought I was going to someone's house who was an actor in Barry Lyndon. He was an Eyes Wide Shut. He was a well-known actor, especially in England, because as he said in Film Worker, he was almost in every cop show you could think of too at the time. Yeah. And when I got there, I couldn't believe in Hollywood that this guy, who I believed really would be, how would you say, really part of film history. Yes. Because he's done almost everything you could think of when it comes to cinema, whether it was editing, cinematography, sound. I mean, he just worked in every field with Kubrick, who was the ultimate taskmaster and the amazing genius that we all love. And, and I was surprised that Leon was just living in this house alone. He wasn't working. And that kind of intrigued me. I was like, it's almost like I related to Leon in a sense of like,
I'm sure.
Could be doing so much and no one cares.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so I was like, this is a great story. I went back to Elizabeth, my partner, and I said, I know we're doing the Kubrick one right now, but this guy's story is like really needs to be told. Yeah. Especially, because of all the below the line film workers in the world that never get recognized.
That's right.
again, you hit the same wall. And I said, but we're already doing one, and I can't even like handle one, let alone get another one on top of it.
Yeah. So how did you handle that?
Well, I remember she came to me like 2 days later, and she said, you're going to regret not doing it. And so again, we're all like, it's all about the passion. So we said, let's do it. And we just jumped on it. I put the Kubrick project aside because Leon's health wasn't that great when we met, and I wanted to finish it. I think I was almost on a mission to tell that story as fast as possible, get it out there, and have Leon be honored. That was just the only image in my mind. Was to show the film to people,
Dear Leon, thank you for your great talent, energy, and kindness. Sincerely, Stanley. People who met him for the first time would always come out saying, geez, nothing like what I've heard about. I know the real Stanley Kubrick.
What Leon did was a kind of crucifixion of himself.
30 years he spent with Stanley Kubrick. They were inseparable.
I was doing theatre, television, prestige costume dramas, BBC, one-off plays, cop dramas, sitcoms.
I shocked you, didn't I?
A phone call came through, and my agent told me, you've got the role in Stanley Kubrick's picture. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I almost passed out.
Leon was a spirit, the apprentice that all of a sudden one day became the master with all the answers.
Danny, you gotta listen to Stanley.
Look scared, look back, left Danny, turn right.
Look around now, hesitate.
He was my acting coach.
Come and play with us, Danny.
It wasn't even in the script that they were twins. I was just looking for someone who was good. And he looked at it and he just said, well, there's no question, is there?
Stanley assigned Leon to me.
Sir, no, sir! Are you a Peter Pupper?
Speed it up, fast.
If it wasn't for Leon Vitali, I doubt I would have done half the job.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. There was just so much to do.
Leon was always
It was like pow. Stanley never trusted anybody. He just did. Everything had to be to the millimeter.
It is your responsibility to make sure they understand exactly what you want.
Inventory, timing sheet, trailer, translation, lab work, color time, layout. I don't know how to do layouts. Sure you do. These are from Eyes Wide Shut. I'm playing 8 different people. When somebody would say to Stanley, I give my right arm to work for you, he would kind of smile, because I actually think he thought, well, why are you lowballing me? What, just the right arm? I wanted to be with Stanley, work with Stanley, do all that stuff. I just wanted to.
So it's a happy ending?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Sometimes as doc filmmakers, when we are sort of in the trenches on a particular project for a long time, sometimes something else comes along that draws our attention momentarily, and suddenly we put all our energies and interest into that, and it's fast and furious, and it's do this project as quickly as possible, partly because you love the idea and you want to do it, but then you have to get back to your other project, but it ends up really helping out the other project as well.
It's like I would say it's a yes and no, because there were times when, and I've had friends that they changed their mind every week.
Oh man.
About doing something else.
Oh
which,
yeah.
That also could be brutal. So, but you're absolutely correct. Certain things come in and you kind of go, there is no way I'm going to walk away from this.
Yeah.
So it depends on the project and the thought, but you also have to kind of be level-headed in a way and go, all right, is this the right decision? But it's all a gamble. You're always taking risk with docs.
Yeah.
Or with filmmaking in general. Especially if you're independent.
Yeah.
So but again, you know what? There's something deep inside of you that says, I'm going to do this. And you just go with it, It's almost like you have to trust your instincts in a sense too, So that's what really happened with this one.
So I could actually talk about any number of subjects with you, Tony, when it comes to doc filmmaking. I do feel a kindred spirit in many ways, and I think a lot of our listeners probably do as well. So I think we're going to have to get you back on the program again sometime, Tony, to further explore your doc life. I'll tell you that much. But a primary focus of these episodes of this two-part series is the film festival, as seen from the eyes of a doc filmmaker like yourself. Filmworker is currently in the midst of its film fest circuit. What is, including MDFF, Melbourne Documentary Film Festival, what has and tell me early on, what was your experience like as a doc filmmaker? What was your experience like with film festivals?
Well, they are our gate to into the world. Like, festivals are the place that you don't need an agent to get into. You don't need a sale to get into. And that happened with me. And obviously we're going to, as you know, we will show the film that was going to be our first place in Australia at the Melbourne Film Festival. And right before that was, the important one also like that was Cannes. And that was the focus at the time, which is to finish, get Leon to go to just one show so we can be there and just be acknowledged. And, of course, the first one was Cannes, so we got him there. And it's, with festivals, it's also costly to get everybody there.
That's
and
right.
Do the transfers and all that stuff. But again, there are some festivals that really kind of jump in and give you a hand and shepherd a project or the filmmaker. But I've also been to some of them that kind of could be like you'd be lost in the shuffle. But like I see that clearly, like with Melbourne. I can even see the communication online with the emails and when we discuss things that they're really hands-on.
Yeah.
And you always appreciate that when you work with a festival like that. And Ken was also the same way. And we got Leon there, and he had a 5-minute standing ovation, and people were in tears because of his journey. His children embraced him and felt like, they saw what their dad has done his whole life. And that's just always the beauty, is like it's almost like you go to a festival and suddenly 5 years or 3 years you worked on your doc and you almost lost your mind trying to get it done. And it's almost like all that disappears when you show your film to an audience. It's kind of like, there's just this feeling, I can't describe it.
Yes.
It's almost like the cure. It just makes you feel, that it's worth something. You don't even think about the sales or all that. It's just like you actually, someone like a festival said, "Come, show your film. We like it," and that is, I think, for filmmakers, is everything.
It is. It's such a wonderful feeling. It's the payoff. Of course, we want to be compensated. That's part of our doc lives. Is we need to make a living doing this. But
you want to make a living.
It's not at the outset. If it is, then you shouldn't be a doc filmmaker.
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. And it's such a lonely world too, because with docs, you're always in this one little room for months after months after months, just trying to shape something in front of you to make it coherent and interesting. And obviously, most people pretty much do everything themselves, and a small crew, and sometimes there is there's hardly any crew.
Right.
But it's a wonderful feeling when you end up going to a festival and showing your film. Absolutely.
Now, early on, did you feel like you had a sense that the film festival was pretty critical for you early on as a doc filmmaker? And then also tell us how that maybe that's changed in any way, or how that's evolved.
Well, yeah, I think festivals are the gateway into that world, because with docs, and you know this very well, and your listeners too, is that production companies and studios are not interested in financing or producing docs.
No.
When they're from concepts, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
And when it happens, it's normally like, maybe you're Michael Moore, that they will bring you in and say, okay, go do what you need to do. So it's always, for us, is like, you come up with the idea, you shoot, you edit, and then if it gets in a festival and people like it, then you would get a production company interested to release it. So you're on your own, pretty much from the beginning. So you have to kind of take that as more of a, how to say it, it's almost like it's the reality, but you have to chase and you have to keep going with your project to get it to that point.
Always a chase.
It is a chase. You just have to get it somewhere. So of course, once a festival responds to your film, it also becomes like, do I open at that festival, or do I say no to that festival and go to this festival? And of course, there are always, people are always telling you different things. You have to, again, you go with your instincts. It's like, who gets your film? It's not really about like it always has to be Sundance or there are so many out there that are really incredible, but it's all about the tailored, handmade kind of approach. Because you could go to a big festival and they're just taking you on top of other films, and you're going to get lost in there and no one is going to know about your film. So it's almost like its own journey, and you have to watch what you're doing, and you have to be very careful, and you have to be into it, and you have to kind of do, like with Melbourne, let's say, that's really what I liked about them is that they tell you what's happening. They tell you what they need. They get you out there with press coverage. They are, very cautious about, the transfer. Are you getting your files transfer correctly? Will it show well? Will it sound well? You want that from a festival. And sometimes you go with a festival, you don't even hear from them. You don't even get a single email except that you're in. And that's really tricky, it's really tricky. And I think people need to always like pay attention to that, not because you went to whatever festival that it's like it's a slam dunk. You still have to kind of do your homework. It's like it's a whole phase in its own.
Right. And when would you say you were starting your strategy, your film festival strategy for the current project, Filmworker?
Well, it was as soon as I had a rough cut. And I looked at the dates and I saw that, I knew that like Ken was just like already like really near deadline. That was the target. I tried to kind of finish as much as possible. And this is another advice for other people too, is people will always tell you just send it the way it is. They watch films all the time. You'll be fine. And honestly, I tell you, try to get as much done as much as possible. Don't count on that, because you have human beings watching a movie. Even though they know it's a rough cut, you just can't. Don't just think that because you didn't finish your sound that it's just they're going to look at it and go, oh no, but he's not done yet. Try to really finish as much as possible, right? Because it's just for your benefit. And a lot of times you submit to a festival and you may not get in, but that's not the end of it. It just, you don't know who is watching the film, and sometimes it's not the right festival for you to begin with. But we all have this misconception that like if you go to a Sundance or you go to Cannes that your film is going to be sold, or like you have to pay attention to your project. That's what I've learned. Like get the elements done, work hard and get it finished to your satisfaction, because nothing is automatic. It's not a slam dunk thing that it's just going to happen. You still have to kind of, do your work.
That's right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Said.
Yeah.
Are you headed to Melbourne by chance, or will you set this one out?
I would love to. I think that there will be a possibility. I've never been there. And again, I just love their approach.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like they're very hands-on, and
they're cool.
They care about
they're
their
really
filmmakers.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been in touch with Lyndon for over a year now, and have a fairly good understanding of how MDFF works and who Lyndon is, and I think you're spot on about that.
Yeah.
I think they really care about.
Yeah, I always every day I would get an email from Lyndon, and it was like it's again you go, wow, that's just like what a privilege to, because I know they have so many films,
right.
And to keep up and to stay in touch with the filmmakers and to make sure that they're getting the elements, and to make sure that they're getting coverage. It's not an easy job for a festival, but it's brilliant when the festival cares enough to do it.
Yes, and
they do.
Yeah, and let's not sell yourself short here, pal. Filmworker is a pretty great documentary, and I think it's well deserved, and I imagine a lot more film festivals are going to fall in line here in quick short order, and I'm excited to see where Filmworker goes for you. Tony, this has really, really been a tremendous conversation. I would love to have you on the program again, talking really so much about. I mean, you really seem like the kind of guy that you seem like the kind of guy that we can really sit down and talk about what the doc life is and what that means.
I love what I do, and I have the soft spot really for docs and doc filmmakers, because they are. It's almost like we're like a cult, a crazy cult, a passionate crazy cult. It's true. You love it, you know. Thank you for doing it.
And thank you so much for being on the Documentary Life, Tony.
Sure.
And we hope to speak with you
again. My pleasure.
Sometime. Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you do too. You know.
Yeah.
We're getting it all out there, so thank you.
Hey, before we take leave from today's episode, I want to remind any doc lifers in the Philadelphia area that we'll be coming to Philly in late July, and we'll be giving an evening workshop, and we'd love to have you attend. The workshop will be on Wednesday, the 25th of July, and we'll be presenting a mini version of The Documentary Life workshop, which includes the filmmaker's identity and fundamental values, personal and professional finances, lifestyle habits and conscious living, building a support network and the importance of community for the doc filmmaker, organization and planning elements of both doc film and leading a doc life. We'll be following the presentation with a 20-minute Q&A session. Throughout the presentation, we'll be sharing what we've learned from over 80 episodes of the podcast and our combined 25 plus years of working in the film industry. And in addition, we look forward to getting to know our Doc Lifer family a little bit better and connecting face to face. Now, for more information, simply go to thedocumentaryacademy.com/join us. Or, of course, you can head to the show notes for this episode. We would absolutely love to see you there, so book your ticket today. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you next week for part 2 of our special on the Documentary Film Festival. Thanks again for listening to the show, and remember to like and subscribe to this channel. Also, remember, for any of the URLs that may or may not be outdated, and you want to get the most up-to-date information, perhaps for the documentary filmmaking courses, for the blog, for other episodes, just go ahead and check in the show notes below on this YouTube page, and that'll give you the correct URLs to use. Thanks again. Have a great day.